Our story begins actually before we were even married, as we started to think about how we wanted to ultimately have our family and grow our family. And Elaine and I had always talked about what our dreams and what our passions were, and really the idea of having natural children in our family as well as adopted into our family children were a part of the conversation and were a natural for us. We've been working with other kids or other people's kids for a number of years from the day we were married. Actually, we worked with the youth group within our church, had a passion for kids, whether they are our own or not, just opening up our arms and saying, hey, we're here for you. We want to be a part of your lives. And as we moved through our marriage, 3 years, 5 years into it, when we started to say, okay, now it's time for us to actually grow our own family, again, we said, let's go the natural route of having a child ourselves. And we went through some real struggles for a good year and a half, 2 years, maybe almost as much as 3 years, I think, in just trying to conceive naturally. And it was a frustrating point for us in our lives. We were actually very angry with God for not kind of putting things together the way that we wanted it to come together. I mean, in our minds, we had it laid out as to how that should be, and it wasn't working out that way. And it was really in 1995 that we really had some things come to be that really shocked our world in the way God wanted to put together this story. I don't know if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. We, like Brian said, we had struggled to conceive, and at that point I was wanting to, felt like it was my inalienable right to bear a child, and I wanted to feel what that was like, and it didn't happen that way. We actually prayed with several of our friends for a long period of time that we could grow our family, and it wasn't until I went through an infertility procedure and actually conceived triplets and then miscarried those triplets that we had some deep grief and despair, but it was during that time that I was reading a book when we were processing that grief after the miscarriage. I was reading a book by Max Lucado, and he wrote this chapter on hope, and it was our hope to become parents, and yet in this chapter he wrote that hope is not what we expect, it is what we would never dream. He says it's the zany, unpredictable dependence on a God who wants to surprise us out of our socks and be there in the flesh to see our reaction. And that actually was our experience only a few short weeks later when we got home from that trip in California. We were away, trying to get away from it all after the miscarriage, and told some people we were considering adoption, going to get our paperwork together in the new year of 1996. Word got around, and someone knew of a young mother in New York who was looking to place her baby for adoption, and they asked us if we were interested. And at the time we thought we had 6 months to plan, and thought that was fitting into what our plan was, that we had boxed out to start our paperwork in 1996 and get things together. But she was actually due in 6 weeks, so it was a speedy process, and we just trusted in the Lord, and it was almost like a miracle in motion. Wow, we saw a lot of the things come together very quickly, that even people in our lives, the adoption agency said, things just don't happen like this. Like, your fingerprints came back in record time, your home study's complete, we're ready for this baby to be born. So we even met our daughter's birth mother prior to her being born, and she shared with us her desire for her unborn baby to have parents that could call forever home and be her forever parents. And it was 6 weeks later that she gave birth to her on December 8th of 1995, and she handed her to us on December 9th when she was only 32 hours old. And it was a neat transfer of parental rights. It was filled with tremendous emotion from both of us, but it was just a neat picture to see how God had orchestrated our two lives to come together as one. And she placed Rebecca, we named her Rebecca Hope, and she placed her in our arms almost 14 years ago, and it's just been a beautiful testimony of God's hand in our lives, and just trying to understand His perfect plan for us. And it's not to harm us, but to give us a hope and a future, as the scriptures say. And we might not understand His plans and how they're laid out, but definitely for us, our experience has been more than miraculous. Shortly after we had Rebecca, doctors diagnosed me with cancer, and I had some treatment related to that. And a year later, I was getting ready to have my scan to see if the cancer was back, and I was not sure if I may have been pregnant. The doctor said it's impossible for you to be pregnant. You have a less than 3% chance of natural conception. And so they were doubtful, but yet God's hand was in it, and there I was, pregnant with a miraculous conception. It wasn't supposed to happen according to doctors. And since then, I've conceived 4 times, more than that. So we have 6 daughters. Rebecca was adopted into our family, and we feel like the way God had planned for her arrival into our family and the shaping of our family is better than we could have ever planned.
I remember we had a friend too when we were going through the treatments who month after month when we felt like we were in despair because we didn't have a baby, she said, well, God can't get the glory this time. God can't get the glory this time. And I remember initially feeling like, stop saying that, because I didn't want to hear that part of it. I was actually angry at God. But as I look back 14 years later, and what God has really done and the experience that He's brought and how He's shown us what this can be, bigger than we could ever imagine or believe, God does get the glory. And it's in His timing. You know, I had another friend say to me at one point in time, you know, God answers yes and He answers no, but His no is not a no. His no is better. And that's hard to see in the middle of things that you're going through in life, that God can actually have something better for you. And for me, you know, that's the thing that I want to hold on to even in my life today, because I want to hear yes. I want to hear yes about God. I want Him to be a yes God. But when He's not, I got to know that He's got something better for me. He had something better for our family. He had something better for how He was going to lay this all out for adoption. And now as we look at it, you know, adoption, natural born, it's who we are as a family. It's not until other people recognize, just because, you know, our oldest daughter doesn't look like the rest, that we go, oh yeah, we adopted Becca into our family. It's really, to us, she's our family. And we can't change that, and we wouldn't want to change that, and it's just, it's a wonderful thing.